Good morning, gentlemen. Well, I moved my camera so I could try to get like a better angle. I moved the camera mount, phone mount, sorry, so that I could try to get a better angle, like of the driving down the road shots. And now it's kind of fucked this one up to where I'm really low on the screen. I guess I could put some air in my seat, but doing everything I can to be one of the cool kids and a goddamn pro star already. Plus I don't know, it's a whole thing. Broke my collarbone a long time ago, and so when I have air in the seat, just moving the stick at that angle, it messes with my collarbone, like where the collarbone fused itself back together, like rubs against my nerves and my shoulder. So that's a whole thing. At any rate, good morning. So today's about numbers. I think we're gonna do a numbers video real quick, and kind of a little explanation of how I got myself into the situation I'm in. Last week was a 9-load week, right? Which was a really good week. The average, and I know this, primarily because I did this same job as a company driver for 5.5 years before I bought my truck. And so the average, you should be able to average 8 loads a week. So last week's numbers were a little bit better than what average numbers would be, but not like astronomically better, if you understand that. So last week, the truck, because the truck makes $450 a load. All right, and we did 9 loads. And so after fuel, because like I said, I think I said in a previous video, we spent a lot of money on fuel last week, because I do the same shit every day, so I'm not one of those guys that gets to like Thursday and is like, oh, I'm going to do 2 more loads, so I'm only going to put in 64.5 gallons and park my truck on E for the weekend, especially in the wintertime. If I'm at the fuel pump, I'm just going to fill it up, top it off. So it ended up being like $1,230 worth of fuel last week. With enough fuel left over to run 2 loads. Today's load, and I could run tomorrow's first load, but I like getting fuel first thing in the morning. So I'll probably just get fuel tomorrow morning, instead of getting it halfway through the day. But at any rate, so there's a little bit of a carryover. So this week should be, closer to like, I don't know, $700-800 worth of fuel to get through the week, kind of deal. It just kind of, however it lands at the end of the week. And so that, my truck note is about $410 a week. So after everything, the truck net profit before I pay myself was like $2,410 on the truck side. And so after I pay myself $1,200 for the week, then I've got the other, whatever that is left over. That stays in my bank account, right? And then on the company side, corporate side, because the corporation pays chassis charges, insurance, permits, all of that stuff. After all of that stuff adds up, which, isn't cheap. I mean, it was like $410 worth of chassis charges for last week, chassis rentals. You got, I think it comes out to like $126 a week for the permits. And then you have the insurance and stuff like that. So the corporate side profited just over $600 net profit on that for the week. Now, there's a couple of things here that we got to get into. On both sides, there are little miscellaneous things that I don't really account for. The apps that I use, some of those are like, it's a 99-cent per month subscription, or like with Genius Scan, because I have an upgraded cloud storage in the Genius Cloud. That's like $3.18 a month. There's a lot of little shit like that on the corporate side. I have that TMFS or whatever. So like for my driver files, I get charged like $4.99 a month for that. For the vehicle files I get charged, it's like $2.99. So there's all like these little piddly miscellaneous crap that when I'm doing my books, I kind of pay attention to them just to make sure I'm not, it's something that I actually need for the business. I'm not just blowing an extra $20-30 a month on shit that I don't even use. Some of that is my iCloud storage. I've upgraded that, so that costs a little bit extra every month. But I don't really factor that stuff into like my weekly net profits. Just like realistically, I should be factoring in $60 a week for my plate. I should be factoring in this, that, and the other. And when I first started, I was doing that. And things ran much smoother. Now, the hard part to that was, I might have like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in my bank account, but then I could look at my books. I ran like, I don't know, I've always called them internal books. It's an actual like paper log. So I could set up like sub accounts within my bank account, meaning like, if I look at my bank account, there might be 10 grand in there, but then if I look at my books, my internal books, it would show that like, 2,000 of that is already allocated towards plates. X amount of dollars is already allocated towards this or that or the other. And then you have your cash on hand category, and that shows you how much of that money is actually in there that you can spend, like just pure cash in your pocket profit. And that's where I got into trouble with the apparel shop, because I would do that, my internal books on a daily basis, writing down every transaction. Well, then on Friday, I would update my internal books with the income side of it, and then I'd be like, oh man, I got $3,000 of cash on hand, just money in my pocket. So yeah, I'll spend $500 on hats, you know, not that big of a deal. Well, you know, that was me kind of getting ahead of myself. That's where I went wrong. Doing the books that way, I do feel is the best way to do it. And I need to get back to that. I want to start that again on January 1st. You know, I want to start doing that again. It's just easier to start it at the new year. But the problem I got into was, you know, coming from 19 years as a company driver and always being paycheck to paycheck, and then all of a sudden, you know, paying myself $1,200 a week, but then looking and being like, oh man, I got an extra $4,000 sitting in the bank that is like, you know, just cash sitting there, like usable money. You know, so sure, go ahead and do this, you know, go ahead and do that. Yeah, we can order, you know, $1,200 worth of shirts, you know, plenty of money in there. Well, then when shit started going sideways, that money went away fast. My biggest problem, or my bigger problem, was I was doing great. I was on track, had plenty of money in the bank. I mean, not a care in the world, right? Then I got my authority. There was a lot of nickel and dime stuff that I didn't account for when I got my own authority. So I blew through that cash on hand money real fast. Then I blew through the money I had already allocated for my plate real fast. And part of that was I guess I should have, but I didn't realize that when I got my own authority, I was going to have to go and get my own plate again. You know, because the plate that I purchased the first time was, I guess, in the computer system, you know, it was my plate, but it showed as the other company's plate, and so that was, you know, $1,900, like $1,885, but $1,900. That I was like, oh shit. So it started depleting all of my sub accounts to where it pretty much depleted my entire bank account. And so it just got to a point where I wasn't doing the internal books anymore because there wasn't anything in there to do, you know, to keep track of. So that's why at this point in time, it's more of just a lump sum, and I know roughly how much I need in there because I know roughly how much and when bills are coming on the horizon. Now at the first of the year, I will get back to doing the sub accounts again, because I got to sit down and figure out, like, okay, how much needs to be in this account, you know, January 1 to be on track to hit target, you know, like for the plates. So I will get back to doing the internal books. If you're a guy just starting out, you know, I highly recommend doing that. It just helps you to keep track of all the dollars that are in your bank account. You know, I know some guys will go and set up like multiple savings accounts, and then each week, you know, like transfer money from their checking account over to this savings account for the chassis charges, over to this savings account for, you know, the plate that they're going to have to buy. To me, it's easier just to do it internally, and you know your numbers so much better. You know, it's easier to track what's profitable and what's not profitable. Even for what I'm doing, a lot of guys, and a big mistake I made is a lot of guys run 2 containers. So they have 2 containers out at all times. Well, you're spending about an extra $350 a week in chassis charges to have that extra container out, because you pay daily rental fee. It's like $24 a day. And it's okay at certain times of the year, I think, when everything's running hot and heavy and you can run, say, 10 and 11 loads a week versus 8 and 9 loads a week, because you need the extra can to basically pay for all of the extra chassis charges, and then you want to get, you know, one more above that in order to see an extra profit, if that makes sense. My problem was I wasn't paying attention, because I wasn't doing internal books. I was just coming out here and driving, you know, wasn't paying attention to my numbers as closely as I should have, and as closely as I like to. And so I was running 2 cans because you can run an easier schedule doing that. You know, you don't have to worry if you got your second can loaded today or not, because you can drop it and still have your other loaded can sitting there. So you can get into a rhythm where you're starting at, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning every morning, irregardless of what time you got done and what got loaded and what didn't get loaded. Where when you're only running 1 can, your schedule is going to fluctuate a lot more. But it wasn't worth paying, you know, $350 a week for that convenience, because with the way the rail yard is today, you know, they changed a lot of things at the rail yard over the last probably year to year and a half, to where there's not the flow, the volume of empty containers coming through there anymore, which makes it more difficult. And so even though I was running 2 cans to try to make my scheduling easier, I was still only getting 7 and 8 cans a week. So I was basically just losing $350 a week for nothing, for, you know, the convenience of starting at the exact same time every morning and an easier sleep schedule, I guess. But $350 a week is a lot to pay for that convenience. And so, you know, with that money coming out and then all the added repairs, it is kind of what sunk me. You know, that's what depleted the bank account so fast. I mean, if I had stayed at just running the 1 container and sucked it up, as far as the scheduling goes, you know, I would. I mean, I did that for like 8 weeks. So, I mean, what, 3, 6, 7, 14. So, what, $1,400 a month, right? $350 a week. So I mean, that's $2,400 I could have had extra sitting in my bank account. You know, and if I was, still doing my internal books, I would have caught that like within 2 or 3 weeks, definitely. But I wasn't doing those books. I was doing the macros and not the micros. So it took 2 months before I kind of realized that, wow, I'm losing my ass running this extra can. So we are where we are, but we're getting better. Like I said, we made good money. We're putting money in the bank now. Part of the thing I want to talk about is, yes, the company made a little over $600 net profit off of the truck last week. All right, if a guy came and leased onto me, he would get the same $450 a week or a load that my truck gets. So that's why I've said before, it's kind of confusing. The $2,400 profit for the week, that would be, any guy that brought a truck over here would see those same profits. And yes, I would make, $500 to $600 a week off of each additional truck that I brought on. The company would. Now, what you don't see is, because of the insurance I have to carry, because of the intermodal, it's going to run me like $6,000 just to add that truck on. So, I mean, you're looking at 3 months worth of corporate profit just to add another truck on. Then obviously once you have the second truck, you're looking at a month and a half of corporate profits to bring on the next truck. Like it's not free for me to add another truck. You have to pay the insurance down payment, before that truck hits the road. You gotta call and get the lettering done. There's a multitude of things that you have to do, and that you have to pay for. The hiring process in and of itself is not free. And so I don't know. I'm comfortable with making, an average of $500 a week profit off of each truck on the corporate side. Some guys say the hell with that. That's not enough to take the risk, because it is a risk. And I don't know. I mean, to me, that's a comfortable position, because I could only pay the trucks $400, but then they're not making enough money to want to come out here and do it every day. If I paid the trucks more, then the corporate side is not making enough money to sustain itself. So there's a yin and a yang. I think I found a good balance. I know a lot of guys will be like, oh man, that's making that much money, off of a driver. This is the business world. You have to do it. You have to. The corporation has bills and obligations it has to pay. If the company is going to grow and be successful, it has to make a profit. And I think these guys on 80/20s, I'm sure the company is averaging more than $500 a week profit off of each truck. I think somebody actually did the math back in the the Travel Loco days, and those guys were making north of $1,000 a week off of each truck. So I think where I'm at is pretty comfortable. Again, I don't really take I don't take any money from the corporation. I live off of my truck. The corporation is kind of, I intentionally keep it separated, and now those funds are depleted too, because, again, when I got my authority, like I had to start that bank account, and I had to get everything going over there, and all that money had to come out of there. So it's a whole thing. But I don't want this video to be like insanely long. I see it's already at like 26 minutes. So it's kind of where we're at. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. I have kind of a touch of the ADD, so I know I tend to float here and there. It's just kind of how my brain works. So if there's something you want to hone in on or zero in on, or need more elaboration on, go ahead and drop a comment down below. I would be happy to make a 5-minute video or something like that, kind of targeting in on particulars. But yeah, have a great day. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all are out making money. I'm doing good. I do local. I'm home every day, so even the 2,400 to the truck, I don't think that's bad for being local, being home every day. Sleeping in my own bed, shitting on my own toilet, all that good stuff. Not having to wear shower sandals and eat at iron skillets. So, and in the future, when I bring trucks on, that's what they can expect too. Because even on an 8-load week, the $2,400 a week net take home or net profit is about average, because you're spending less on fuel, so it kind of averages out. I don't think that's bad for being local. I've had some company guys be like, "Oh man, if you're not making $170,000 a year net profit, it's not worth it." I don't know. I think it's worth it. I think it's really worth it. So, at any rate, you guys have a good day. I will talk at you later. Bye.